Hello, welcome to the channel Darkness to Christ. Today's video I'm going to be explaining how I have fulfilled Bible prophecy in my own life. Now let's start at the very beginning. I was born into this world and I remember being a kid, as we all do. And if you look at and observe children, they're in the kingdom. They have a relationship with God. They're at peace. They're loving. But then, just as what happened with Adam, I fell for the sinful world. So you slowly lose contact because you fall away from your relationship with the spiritual father and you fall to the temptations of the world. And then you become in the kingdom of darkness rather than having the relationship with the father. And from there, I spent up until 24 years old just living in the world, like the prodigal son, just living in the sinful world, not really thinking too much of it. But then when I was 24, I had a great tribulation and I had a very, very difficult period of my life. Everything, basically, you put the story of Job, that's pretty much what happened to me. It was a great tribulation, and the Antichrist within me rose and was ruling my life. Just as the prophecy says that the Antichrist will rule the world, I believe it's a personal message. And the great tribulation and Antichrist rose in my life, and it seemed like it was the end. But just as the Bible prophecy again predicts, Christ came to save me. And it wasn't as if Jesus came into my life to save me as such, but what happened is I just, pure chance or fate, destiny, whatever you call it, I just started meditating, fasting. I started getting into philosophy, more mysticism than religion. And I believe that awakened my spirit. And then I started just basically reading about Christ's teachings. I didn't get into Christianity, all the biblical stuff. I just started looking at Christ's life. And everything that I learned from the spiritual and mystical side made sense, but not what the Christians were saying. What the Christians were saying didn't make any sense, but Christ's teachings of loving one another, being born again, the story of the prodigal son, how he contradicted the Pharisees, who were the biblical people at the time, everything made sense. And then I was born again and I was spiritually resurrected. So I overcame the flesh, and that's what resurrection represents. It represents being born again spiritually, and you resurrect away from the flesh into the spirit. And when you do that, you enter heaven. But again, it's not you're entering heaven when you die. You enter heaven. Heaven, Christ talked about, is a kingdom on earth. But it's not a physical kingdom. It's basically just you're living as a spirit rather than as the flesh. And to be honest, it's something you can't really explain. It's sort of a mystery that's revealed to you. Now, there'll be some people listening to this who will get it and they'll understand because they're in the kingdom. But there'll be a lot of people who listen to this and say, what's he talking about? It doesn't really make any sense. You know, you enter the kingdom. Something very subtle that can't be explained. It's a mystery. And it's only something you'll understand when you enter the kingdom. And I can give an analogy or an example with myself. I read a book called The Alchemist, and it was talking about how everyone has great riches inside of them that they need to find in their life. And the story of The Alchemist is about this individual traveling through life trying to find his treasure. And when I read the book at the time, I was thinking, when's he going to find this treasure? And I assumed that the treasure was money, like he was going to become financially rich or something along those lines about the treasure. And it was only when I was born again spiritually, I realized, the treasure is the spirit realizing and the spiritual awakening within and entering into Christ's kingdom. That is the treasure that we're all seeking. And the irony of life is that we're always seeking outside of ourselves, even in religion. But the treasure, the whole purpose and meaning of life is locked inside of us this whole time. It is our spirit. That's our true identity. And our spirit is connected to our Father. And it lives in all of us, and that is the kingdom. Once you become reborn spiritually, you enter Christ's kingdom. And then from there, as the Bible prophecy goes, once you enter heaven, you bring heaven to earth. That's what happens. Christ will rule on earth. And now I am born again in the spirit of Christ. I am bringing Christ's kingdom and heaven to earth in my tiny life. So I believe this is what all this Bible stuff and all the spiritual stuff really means. And Christianity and biblical knowledge doesn't understand it. You need to be spiritually reborn. And then you understand it. Everything has a spiritual meaning. It doesn't have an intellectual meaning. And to finish the point of this video as well is to say, a lot of these Christians are obsessed with scholars and I hear a lot of them saying, what religious degrees and theology degrees do you have? And I'm like, well, I have the same that Jesus had. I don't care about theology. I don't care about scholars. I don't care about pastors, priests, Pharisees. I like to learn from them if I'm trying to intellectually understand the Bible. But when it comes to spiritual understanding, I don't care what they have to say. I go to the mystics. I go to the spiritual masters. I go to spiritually awakened people. And that's where I get my spiritual understanding from. It's not something you can learn from a scholar. Okay, so that's the point of this video. I just found it interesting of how when I was reading all the Bible prophecies, I was like, well, it literally has happened in my life. And obviously it could happen or will most likely happen in the world as well, but it won't happen how the Bible predicts it. It would just be when individuals have what's happened to me and what many other people are coming to and being truly born again and entering Christ's kingdom, that's how the world will change. But we're not waiting for Christ to physically come into this world and an antichrist to physically rise. It's all within us. We have to overcome the evil within us and be born again and activate the Christ within us. And that's how we're going to bring heaven to earth. And I tell people that's what we need to focus on. Focus on ourselves, and then we'll make the change to society. But if we don't focus on ourselves, it's not going to happen. You know, Jesus is not going to come back physically to save us. We have to do the spiritual work ourselves. Okay, so usual stuff. If you like the video, like it, comment below. If you have any comments, subscribe, and God bless everyone. Goodbye.